Canada continues to deepen its ties with Europe as Prime Minister Mark Carney announced negotiations are underway with Swedish company Saab to acquire its GlobalEye aircraft. But the Prime Minister also made note the U.S. aren't too far from this deal.
I'm pleased to announce that Canada has entered into negotiations to procure Saab's airborne early warning and control aircraft. At the heart of the GlobalEye system is the Canadian-made Bombardier Global 6500, an aircraft that includes 20% U.S. content, which gives a sense of just how integrated these defense systems are.
The Bombardier-made jet contains Saab's radar and sensors and is manufactured at the company's plant in Toronto. For more on this choice and these negotiations, I'm joined by Stephen Fuhr, who is the Secretary of State for Defense Procurement. Stephen Fuhr, it's good to see you, sir. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
So the GlobalEye was in competition against the U.S. manufacturer Boeing and the L3 Harris Air X, two American options. So they're delighted with this decision, I'm sure. Why did you pick the Swedish option?
Build, partner, buy. That's ultimate. I mean, we made a commitment to doing this. As you mentioned, the air vehicle is built in Toronto, Global 6500. It's militarized in Sweden. The aircraft does have 20% American content, as the Prime Minister mentioned today. I think it's avionics, radios. I think the APU is part of the airplane. But there's a massive opportunity in this deal, as it was down selected as the preferred supplier, and Mr. Guzman at the DIA will work through all the details, is to not only continue to build the airplane, because that won't stop, but to militarize the airplane. So instead of the green airplane, we call it, flying from Toronto to Sweden to get militarized and become the GlobalEye.
We do that now domestically.
We would do that here domestically for our own needs, but then to export this airplane to others. And as far as I know, we heard numbers today of 40 aircraft opportunity in the world. I think it's higher than that. So, exporting, this is exactly what we're looking to do. Supply ourselves, fulfill our own needs, and export to our partners.
Okay, so the DIA, as you said, is the new Defense Industrial Agency.
Correct.
They're working on it. So this is an advanced manufacturing expansion, essentially, a technology transfer on this. But with Saab, they are also looking to be the supplier of the next gen, or a significant part of the next gen of the fighter fleet. And the Gripen is on the table with a similar kind of offer. So when people look at you picking the Swedish option here, what inferences should they draw from that about the options for the next one?
They're completely unrelated. I mean, this is an AEWC aircraft. It's designed to work with all fighters out in the battle space, and they're not related. This is a great opportunity for delivering, pulling forward capability for the Canadian Armed Forces that was identified in the defense policy. We're pulling it forward, just like we pulled subs forward. We're delivering a lot faster. And this aircraft will control and work with all the fighters out there in the battle space.
So when will we see, I like the Prime Minister, I'm tempted to call it GoldenEye, the GlobalEye. When will we see these GlobalEyes delivered to Canada, being made in Canada, being militarized in Canada? What's the timeline here? Because I'm sure you saw the criticism from the Conservatives.
Yeah, fair enough. So to be fair, Canada doesn't currently have this capability. This is a new capability. So we will have to recruit people, train people, come up with a training system. So it will take some time. Probably best to ask the CAF, or one of the generals or David McGuinty, how long it'll take them. I can't think it would take more than maybe a couple of years. However, we want to get into an agreement and get this militarization and export opportunity starting sooner rather than later, so we can start exporting to people who are buying this airplane. And if we end up taking aircraft 7, 8, 9, 10 off the line instead of the first couple because those are going somewhere else, this creates thousands of good-paying jobs for Canadians across the country, and we can start that process soon. So
there's a world where, when this is finalized, should it all go as planned, that Canada will be building and militarizing these planes before they'll be receiving and flying these planes.
That's very possible. That's very possible.
Okay.
And not only that, bringing our own supply chains in, and the GlobalEye that exists today won't be the same GlobalEye that exists, we're flying in 2035.
Sure.
Technology changes. We can bring our own supply chain in, all our SMEs, all the sensors that are in that big array on the back. All the guts of that thing will change out, every couple of years, every 3, 4, 5 years, and Canada can be involved in all of that. So it's not just the people, building the things and putting things together. It's our researchers, it's our companies, it's our technology. We can work with Sweden. It's a really, really good fit, and there's a lot of good content here.
Will you be able to apply any of your Buy Canada procurement policies towards something like this? Like, where it is a partnership in a way here, or is it open procurement for them? Because where Sweden is involved with this with Saab, do Canadian suppliers get priority or preference in contributing to the manufacturing and the value chain here?
So the array and most of the militarization pieces, I mean, if you want to upset the supply chain for that, that really upsets things. So the physical labor happening here is big because there's lots of people doing it. The supply chain for the global or for the actual air vehicle itself there's lots of Canadian content, 20% US, a bunch in Canada. And then the next, like version 2.0, 3.0, that's where we start to bring in. There's massive opportunity.
Okay, so you've made a decision on this plane. You've been doing this review of the other plane decision for over a year now.
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. But when does Canada learn? When does NATO learn? When does Sweden and the United States learn on your choice between the F-35 and the Gripen? Because how much more do you need to know here?
Yeah, well, I understand that everyone's eager to find out an answer to that, but the reality is we haven't slowed anything down. This is not costing us time. We have contracts. We're contractually obligated to Lockheed Martin for 16 airplanes. Apparently, we have purchased the long lead items for 14 more. So you do the math, we're at 30 aircraft-ish, and infrastructure is being built. So we haven't slowed anything down. So to think that we're stalling or upsetting the apple cart in terms of timeline to delivery of a new capability, we haven't done that.
But it's not speeding anything up either.
Well, you know, we're still moving. We're marching down the path. So the question then becomes, and the government will let everyone know when it's decided, what does the full picture look like in the future? And we're just not there ready to make a decision on that. We'll make one when we're ready to go. It's an important decision. There's lots of implications to think about here, and when the government's ready, it'll tell.
But is the delay in making this decision, is it related to the planes and the specifications and the military needs, or is it related to CUSMA?
Well, I don't get to sit at the table around the CUSMA discussion. That's Dominic LeBlanc, the Prime Minister, and some other folks. So, I mean, people can speculate on what they think that is, but let me just say there's lots of things to think about, and we'll make the right decision for Canada when we're ready.
No, look, I know you're not at that table, but if one table is bumping into the other table, if the trade table and the plane table are playing bumper cars, you would be aware, would you not? I mean, from the outside, I mean, people could draw their own conclusions. That's how we get into trouble. You can end the speculation right here, Stephen.
Yeah, I could. Unfortunately, I'm not going to do that.
Right, but it is all of those things have to be considered in totality, it seems to me.
To your point, there's lots of things to consider. And the most important thing is we get it right. It's a massive purchase. There's lots of implications, and we will get it right.
Okay, but we're going to have a decision on the submarines by the end of June. Also a very big decision.
It's a huge.
You know, with Germany and Norway on one side of the argument and South Korea on the other side of the argument, important partners and allies. How do we get to a final sub decision before we get to a final plane decision? Because I, was a much younger person with still some hair when we started the F-35 process, and here we are, Stephen Fuhr.
We are going to get a new combat capability for the RCAF. It will happen. It is happening. With regard to subs, you bring up a good point. We have just demonstrated Canada can deliver a competitive process in lightning speed. It could be, if we buy all 12 subs and infrastructure, the biggest procurement we ever do. And we will have done it at an eye-watering speed. So we'll know who the preferred supplier is by the end of June.
Right. Okay. So you can move at eye-watering speed at times.
Yeah.
So will we know what's happening with the fighter jets by the end of this calendar year? Is that even something that the government
just have to
commit
refer to what I said before. When we're ready to make a decision, we'll be the first to tell you.
You very clearly do not want to get ahead of the Prime Minister on this, right? I mean,
I don't.
Look, and I understand, right? I understand. But okay, so again,
the old stay in your lane. That's what I'm doing here.
All right, but so there is no update on that. Even though there's a deal here with Saab, we should not link the two and assume that this is where the Gripen is.
I'm glad you
land.
asked the question, because some people will try and connect those dots. They're not connectable. Yeah, the manufacturer makes both of those things. That's true. They're totally two different capabilities, and the airborne early warning and control aircraft controls all fighters quite well. Lots of countries want it. France is buying it, which is amazing. Sweden operates it. UAE flies it, and there's a whole host of other countries that I happen to know are sniffing around, for lack of a better word. And this is really good news for Canada. It'll totally reinvigorate our aerospace in ways we haven't seen in decades.
Stephen Fuhr, Secretary of State for Defense Procurement. Please come back when you can tell us more about the F-35's open invitation. Thank you, sir.
Pleasure.